All right, everybody. My guest today is an Emmy Award-winning travel journalist whose work spans several decades and every continent on Earth. He's the travel editor for CBS News, where he contributes to CBS Mornings, CBS Evening News, and Sunday Morning. He also hosts The Travel Detective on public television and produces and co-hosts numerous other travel shows on PBS, Amazon, and Apple TV. Peter Greenberg, welcome to the podcast.
Happy to be with you.
Yeah, I am so glad to have you here. More than 20 years ago, when I started my career as a travel journalist, I picked up one of your books to try to figure out what the heck I was supposed to do. And it must have worked, because here I am more than 20 years later. So I appreciate certainly all the contributions you've made to our industry. I'd love for you to tell our listeners where you've been most recently and where you are going next.
Well, my travel schedule is a little insane. I go to Beirut the way people go to the supermarket. I'm back in about 3 days. So in the last month, we've been to Hong Kong, we've been to Malta, we've been to Barcelona, we've been to New York, we've been to London. I came back from London yesterday. I'm now in Los Angeles, and I leave for Tampa on Wednesday to do another shoot, back to New York on Friday, and then I leave on Saturday for Chicago. Other than that, I can still remember what day it is.
I was just going to ask, I know you've got a clock in front of you, but does your body really know what time it is?
Well, I've been blessed. I only sleep about 4 hours a day. The problem is my body doesn't know when I'm not working. So Sunday mornings are because it still makes me get up at 4 a.m. You can't help it. No, I do know where I am, except for twice a year. I can't tell you when and I can't tell you where. I will wake up at some ungodly hour and have absolutely no idea where I am. But that only happens to me twice a year. So I'm planning for two very, very embarrassing times, and then I'm okay.
Yeah, I feel that. I've had that happen to me. It's terrifying for, 10 seconds, and then you figure it out and, go back to sleep. Life's all good.
Exactly.
So if you were to meet 16-year-old Peter, what would he think about the life you lead and the career that you've had?
Well, if I were to meet the 16-year-old Peter today, it would not be a pleasant conversation. And the reason for that is the world has changed so dramatically in terms of travel, in terms of tourism, in terms of geopolitics, in terms of travel and tourism as an economic driver, but in terms of AI, in terms of where we get our news, what we trust, how we share it. My advice to him is basically find another career. And no, in terms of journalism, not in terms of travel. In terms of travel, obviously, it's the best thing that ever happened to me. There are 196 countries in the world. I've been to about 152 of them.
Wow.
I may not get to the other 44, but I am not complaining. I've had a chance, even with my crazy schedule, to do very, very deep immersions into people and culture and all things pertaining to those individual environments, always full of surprises, and then be able to share it with everybody else. It's still a sad state of affairs that only 38% of Americans have a passport.
Yeah.
That means 62% have made a conscious decision not to see anything. And that's, to me, that's a continual sadness, because we live in a global village. And how can you talk about Utah without talking about Ukraine? How can you talk about Wyoming without talking about, West Virginia and points east? I mean, that to me is very sad. I wish it got better. I wish our school system taught geography. How about that? When was the last time you saw a school teach geography?
Yeah.
Every year, I'm still having my conversation with my 16-year-old Peter, by the way. Every year, and I do it not at December. I do it every 3 months. I tell my audience, give yourself an early Christmas present. Go out and buy an atlas. Not the $50 coffee table version, the $12 paperback. Put it on your bedside table. And every night before you go to bed, open it up to a random page and wow yourself.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to me how many people don't do that. There are three kinds of people in the world. This is what I would tell my 16-year-old self. They're the people who make things happen. They're the people who watch things happen. And then there's a category you never want to be in, the people who wonder what happened. And I'm somewhere between the first two, right? The making things happen because I produce all these shows. The watching things happen as a journalist. But if I'm ever in that third category, you have my permission to practice some euthanasia and take me out of my misery.
Yeah, boy, I understand that. When I was about 12 years old, somebody gave me an atlas, and I remember sitting in my bedroom just poring over it and looking at pictures, and I have a vivid image in my head of this picture of the Great Wall of China. And then 30 years later, when I was standing on the
Yeah.
Great Wall of China, I thought, what is this life I'm living? That I'm literally in the pages of this atlas. It was amazing.
Now, what you do is go back to, if you still have that original atlas, go get a new one and compare them to see how much has changed.
Hmm.
Countries that no longer exist, borders
Yeah,
that no longer exist. I mean, it's a wow.
yeah, for sure. So that low number of Americans who hold passports, who are interested in traveling abroad, do you have any insights as to why that number is so low, whether that's
Yeah.
data or just, kind of gut instinct?
I think so much of America has made it. I don't want to sound like an elitist, but so much of America, or so many Americans, have made a conscious choice to be uneducated.
Hmm.
Uh, there's this problem of a lack of curiosity and an overwhelming amount of fear. That combination is lethal.
Hmm.
Um, the word State Department advisory. The minute you hear those three words, you go, "I'm not going."
Right.
And if you actually read a State Department advisory, it's pretty ludicrous.
Right.
Um, you know what the State Department advisory is for Turkey?
No idea.
Americans are warned that Turkish drivers pass on the left and the right. Have they been on the San Diego freeway? I mean,
Right.
is that going to stop me from going to Turkey? Of course not. The one for Indonesia says Americans are warned to stay away from large crowds and avoid buses. Let me tell you something. I live in LA. I avoid large crowds and I avoid buses because in LA I have no idea where the buses go. That's true
Right.
terrorism. So, but it doesn't stop me from going to Indonesia. And so, what I tell everybody is, look, you should read those State Department advisories, but get three other sources. Get the British Foreign Office, their advisory to their citizens. I happen to think they do a better job. That's all
Hmm.
accessible online. The second thing is, uh, go with very few exceptions, and I mean very few exceptions. Anywhere you want to go in the world, there is an either daily or weekly English language newspaper that's published, that's available online. Read the last 30 days,
Hmm.
and then you'll be able to make an informed decision. And when that's done, when that's finished, then you can always call the concierge at the best hotel in that city, and they'll be honest with you.
Hmm.
Bottom line, if you just go based on State Department advisories, you'll become a barricaded suspect. You'll be in the basement safe room, and you'll never leave home.
Hmm. Yeah. You mentioned a lack of curiosity. I wonder if you have any ideas how those of us who work in the tourism industry full time may be able to help inspire curiosity among a population that's not going to get it at school or from, mass media.
Well, what I like to do, and I do this with my audience all the time, is I ask them geography questions. And then we
Hmm.
get into culture, right? So, for example, I'll give you one right now. And by the way, you're not going to get it. I promise you,
Okay.
you're not going to get it, but I'll surprise you. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Which country in the world has the most number of islands?
Oh gosh. Not, no clue. I wouldn't even try to answer that.
Okay, some people might say Indonesia, they've got 18,000. Some people
Wow.
might say the Philippines, they've got over 7,000. Some say 8,000. The country that's got the most number of islands, this blew me away too, but I went there and it's true. It's Sweden.
No way.
They have 24,000 islands and nobody knows it. Now, if that
Wow.
doesn't spark your curiosity, I mean, we're just getting started, right?
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
I'll give you a US quiz. This one you might get. Most people don't
Okay.
get them. Here we go. Name in this order the westernmost state in the United States, the northernmost, the southernmost, and the easternmost. So start with the westernmost.
Westernmost, I'm assuming is Hawaii.
Okay, that would be incorrect. Next.
Northernmost, I'm assuming is Alaska.
Okay, you got that one right. That was a no brainer. Okay,
Okay.
southernmost.
Southernmost state. Can I look at the map to my side?
No,
I I believe it's Texas or is it Hawaii? I'm not sure.
well, make a choice.
I'm going to say Texas.
Okay, that's your second incorrect answer.
Crap.
Now, I'll give you that answer in a second. Now, we did west, we did north, we did south. By the way, the answer to south, you almost had it right, is Hawaii.
Okay.
Now, the toughest one of all, the easternmost.
Okay. Easternmost. It's a question of whether in my mind, it's a question of whether the tip of Maine goes further east than the Florida Keys. And I'm going to
All
say
right, so make a
Florida.
choice.
I'm going to say Florida.
Is that your final answer?
That's my final answer.
You want to call a friend, use a lifeline, anything like that? No?
My friends don't know.
Okay. Well, my point exactly. All right.
Yeah.
So here we go. It's not a trick. It's not a trick question, but it'll surprise you with the answer. It's
Yeah.
Alaska. Alaska
Oh.
is north, east, and west because it goes so far across the international date line. It's 3 of the 4 answers.
Oh
Now, if
my goodness.
that doesn't make you want to go out and get an atlas and learn, wow, right?
Yeah.
Okay, wait. I'll
That's
give you one
incredible.
more. I'll give
Okay.
you one more, and this one really blew me away. Uh, when we're finished with this, I encourage everybody listening to go get a map of of North America, right?
Yeah.
And tell me, not counting oceans, what's the largest body of water in North America?
Oh man.
And I didn't get it. I'll be honest. I didn't get it till I saw it on the map, and it completely blew me away to the point where we're going to do a 1-hour television special on it because nobody knows.
Largest body of water in North America, Lake Superior.
Okay. Most people would guess one of the Great Lakes, and
Yeah.
they would be wrong. So you're going to get lovely parting gifts and a copy of the home game, but you're done. But by the way, I was done too. You know what the answer
Yeah.
is? Hudson Bay in Canada.
No
Look
way.
at the map. You will be completely blown away by the size of Hudson Bay, and nobody knows it. I can't wait to go over there.
Yeah. Wow. That's incredible. Do you have a feeling for what the macro changes have been in your career that are really affecting travel, and you can see it every day? You can see it all over the way travel is today.
Sure. Well, let's divide it by airlines, hotels, and cruise lines. With airlines, of course, it was deregulation back in 1978.
Mm-hmm.
That's when government regulation was put on hold, and bad airline management was allowed to show without government protection how bad they could really be. That's why we've had over 170 Chapter 7 bankruptcies of airlines in the last little more than 40 years. It also allowed for tremendous consolidation as airlines could not survive in predatory pricing arenas. And that's why we have just a few legacy airlines left that are dominating the market, right? American,
Right.
United, Delta, you can throw Southwest in there if you'd like, a little bit of JetBlue, but they're not in great shape these days, which is why they're trying to merge with everybody. But what that's allowed, initially what deregulation allowed, which was a game changer, it allowed for the democratization of travel. Everybody could
Yeah.
travel. It
Yeah.
was no longer for the elites. It truly opened the door for people to go. The 747 played a huge part in that in terms of overseas travel because airlines could amortize their costs, and it was not that expensive anymore to go to Europe, just for starters. That was great. Now that's devolved now into a mess of predatory pricing and oligopoly and basically restraint of trade. But the game changer really was 1978 and the Deregulation Act for airlines. For hotels, it's been a rapid expansion in branding to the point where everybody's confused. So I was at a conference recently where I was giving a speech. It was an industry conference, and I asked this question: who here can tell me how many brands Marriott has?
Oh gosh.
Now we're 500 people in the room. One hand went up, and I said, "Let me guess. You should work for Marriott, right?" Yes. Okay, good. So go ahead. You raised your hand. Tell me. And he said, 33. Okay, 33 separate brands. Okay, wait, I'm not done with you yet. Name them.
Oh gosh.
Wait, he did. But
Wow.
then came the tougher question. I said, one more question. Distinguish them,
Oh.
define them. And they couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So what we have now is a complete explosion of brands, whether it's Marriott, Hilton, Hyatt, Wyndham, Intercontinental. Nobody knows. It's almost like this real estate. I won't say it's a Ponzi scheme, but people understand how hotels work. Marriott doesn't have equity in any of their hotels, maybe one or two. Hilton
Right.
is the same way. Hyatt's the same way. So their job is to get investors to put up enough money to build a hotel that they will then manage for them and make money on the management fee. So the only way these big brands can succeed is to have as many different brands as possible, because if I say to you, okay, I'm going to give you, Brian, a Sheraton, and I'm going to give you exclusivity that nobody can have a Sheraton within a mile of you.
Right.
Okay, now there are another group of investors that says, okay, I'm giving you a Marriott, and I give you the corner right across from yours. And then I give somebody else a Four Points, and I give somebody else a Residence Inn. All of a sudden, everybody's competing against each other, and everybody thinks they have exclusivity, and you reach a certain point of diminishing returns where there are too many hotels. So you're going to start seeing in the next 6 months to 12 months consolidation there as well, just like we saw in the airline industry. And then finally, and I think this is good news, is the cruise industry. Because during the pandemic, you may know that the Centers for Disease Control put a full stop on cruising,
Right.
and they had to. And they would not allow any cruise ship to resume service unless they performed and actually complied with about 75 different new protocols. And the cruise lines did, and they've done a great job. But what people don't realize is that during the pandemic, the cruise lines may not have been sailing, but the shipyards were very busy. And they were very busy completing ships of every size and pedigree, ranging from 100-passenger small ships to the 8,000-passenger, gigantic cruise ships, where I like to joke they're so large they have a high crime area on board. But that's my joke. It's just a joke.
Right.
But the point is the opportunity for travelers that have choice now to go to ports that you couldn't even get to before. I mean, there are so many places. This goes back to the Atlas. There are so many places in the world. The only way you can access them is by ship, not by big ship, but by small ship.
Yeah.
And that opens up. I'll give you a comparison figure here, which should surprise a lot of people. Back in the days of the Love Boat, back in the 70s, remember that show, Captain Stubing, and Isaac the bartender, and Doc, and Radar. All right, how many ports of call were there for cruise ships? You ready?
Yeah.
7, and 4 of them were Nassau, right?
Wow.
I mean, very small. I'm not talking about the ocean liners that were going out of business at that point because people weren't doing transoceanic. Yes, they were going to Southampton with the QE2 and stuff like that. But I'm talking about cruise ships.
Yeah.
You know how many there are today? Over 1,400.
Oh, my goodness.
1,400. So the opportunities for people to explore in style and comfort is amazing. And I mean, if you just take a look at the map and look at where you can go, right, that you couldn't go to before, simply because the infrastructure wasn't there, right? And we're not talking huge ships. We're talking just any ship. The Kimberleys in northwestern Australia, Papua New Guinea, an island called Kiribati, the former Gilbert Islands. I mean, we're just getting started. To me, it's like I'm the kid in the candy store now.
Yeah, that is amazing. Are you at all concerned about the price of travel these days? I think about, 30 years ago and growing up in a very middle class house and being able to travel, and not stressing too much about whether it would be affordable. And I see hotel rates in some cities these days, $400 or $500 a night. And I wonder.
Oh, and higher and higher.
Yes, exactly. I wonder if it's becoming a luxury good in a way that it wasn't when I was growing up. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, we have to divide it by what constitutes a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5-star hotel, right? What most people don't realize is once you get outside the United States, a star rating has nothing to do with the quality of the hotel.
Right.
It's a tax designation given by a government that reflects the charge that they're putting on their room rates.
Wow.
So a 5-star hotel is just the most expensive hotel in town. It could suck, right? So, and sometimes they do.
Yeah.
Here's the interesting thing. In the post-pandemic world, especially at the luxury level, the 4- and 5-star hotels have more often than not made a choice. And the choice is we'd much rather be half full but charge $1,000 a night than full at $400 a night. They don't want to discount anything. They want to maintain what they call their rate integrity.
Yeah.
That only lasts so long. That's what's happening now. That's what you're noticing now.
Yeah.
However, there are great deals, but here's the mistake that everybody makes. And I bet you make the same exact mistake. Ready? How do you make your reservations?
I Google something, book it
You
online.
go online. Okay. So far, you're not doing very well today, Brian. Okay, here we go. You ready?
Yes.
What you see on and I know why you go online, because it's expedient. You can do it at 3:00 in the morning in your bathrobe. God forbid you don't have to talk to a human being. And then you see these little keystrokes and you hit them and you're so proud of yourself. and you're already disadvantaged at that point. And the reason for that is you're not seeing all the inventory. You're only seeing the inventory that online travel provider has been given by the main travel provider. So when you see a little box that says only 3 seats left or only 2 rooms left, that's a blatant lie. That means it's only 2 seats left in their allocation that they got from the airline, or 2 rooms left in the allocation they got from the hotel. There could be so many seats on that plane, you can go bowling on the plane, but the point is you don't know that.
Yeah.
So I use the internet to research. I do not use the internet to buy, for all sorts of reasons that can start and end with dynamic pricing and cookies and algorithms and AI. But even if those weren't in place, you're still not seeing all the inventory. So we just did a story on one of my PBS shows called Secret Flights. Flights that don't show up on your screen because it's biased, that are not only amazing, but are available to you at much less pricing. Let me give you an example. You want to go from New York to Milan. More people would probably fly an Italian airline or Delta United or Delta United or American. Okay. How about Emirates? How'd that happen? Why is Emirates flying from New York to Milan? Because of an international agreement called the Fifth Freedom Flight, and there are dozens of them, that allows an airline not based in country A to fly from a city in that country to another city where they're not based and still take passengers as they're en route to where they're based. So that New York to Milan flight then continues on to Dubai.
Yeah.
You want to fly from Frankfurt to New York? This is the real winner. Singapore Airlines. Who knew?
Yeah.
Right? Because it starts in Singapore, stops in Frankfurt, continues to New York. So you can also fly New York to Frankfurt, because when it finishes, it goes on to Singapore. The craziest ones, how about Buenos Aires to Sao Paulo?
Wow.
Turkish Airlines. What the hell is... Well, the plane starts in Istanbul, stops in Buenos Aires, shuttles to Sao Paulo, and flies back to Istanbul. Now, let me give you some pricing. My airfare in business class on the Buenos Aires to Sao Paulo flight, on a brand new 777 with as much baklava as I could eat on the plane, was $100.
You're kidding.
I'm not, because we've been steered to become dependent on, and some might even argue obsessed by, the internet. No. If you go to our website, which has the imaginative name petergreenberg.com, you'll see that story. And you'll see that there's so many of those flights, but nobody knows, right?
Yeah.
That's a good reason why you need to have the big C word, conversation, with the airline directly or with a travel advisor. You know, people think travel advisors are dead. No, they're bigger than ever.
Yeah.
They just specialize now. And that's a big difference. But bottom line is, that's a partial answer to your question, which also gets back to your hotel question. Because, you know, if you go online and you see, let's say Expedia has a hotel room for $200, the merchant markup for Expedia is 30%. So that means, right, $60 of that $200 goes to Expedia. The hotel never sees it, right? Yeah. So if you know that, what's to prevent you from calling the hotel directly and offer them $150? That's still $10 more than they're going to get from Expedia.
Do the employees at the hotels feel like they have agency to take a deal like that?
An unsold hotel room is revenue they'll never recoup once the sun rises. And by the way, you're not talking to reservations. That's the worst thing you could do. If you call hotel reservation, they'll either route you to an 800 number that has no ability to negotiate anything, or they're not empowered to give you a yes. No, you call the hotel and ask to speak to the MOD, stands for the manager on duty. Introduce yourself, let them know you're looking forward to coming to the hotel. What's the best rate they can give you? And if they say, well, it's $200, you say, wait a second, that's what Expedia is offering, and they're only going to give you $140 out of that. So why don't I give you $150, and it's a win-win for both of us?
Yeah.
Now, any moron can do the math at that point.
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible. Now, you mentioned specialization. A lot of people listening to our show specialize in package travel. They're tour operators. You know, they package transportation, accommodations, activities. Is that a part of the industry you have spent much time with? Do you have any insights on how it's evolving and you know what the future might look like for that segment?
That has evolved in a very good way, because, you know, I'm a huge fan of travel agents and travel advisors. They proved their worth during the pandemic
Hmm.
by advocating with no commission on their part at all to get refunds for their clients and to help them out when they were completely stranded. They're back bigger than ever, but we now live in a world of specialization. So I use about 6 or 7 different travel agents based
Wow.
on either where I'm going or the experience I want to have, right?
Hmm.
So if I want to do a barge trip in France, there's a travel agent or a tour operator that does nothing but that. They have preferred supplier relationships and they can really give me a better experience. So the days of the old mom and pop travel agent that would book my cruise and send my kid to college and send my wife on a business trip, that's over.
Yeah.
So if you look at the major consortia like Virtuoso or Travel Leaders or Signature, they're doing that, right? If you go on their website, they will connect you to a specialist who handles nothing but roller skating in Barcelona. Right? And
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not kidding. So that's what's happening now with the tour operators and the tour packages. They've been forced in a very good way to become specialists. Not only that, to come up with itineraries that are not just trapping people on a bus going to a tchotchke store.
Yeah.
They're getting very creative. By the way, so are the cruise lines. A lot of cruise lines have gotten smart now. They're no longer showing up at a port at 7 in the morning and leaving at 4 in the afternoon, where you jump on a bus and see one tourist attraction and race back to the boat with a T-shirt.
Right.
They're doing overnights.
Hmm.
They're spending longer amounts of time. Their shore excursion packages are truly immersive now and participatory. It's one thing to go to Ketchikan in Alaska and tour. It's another thing to get on a boat, go fishing, come back and have the chef cook it for you on the cruise ship. I
Wow.
mean, there's an experience, right?
Yeah.
They're getting smarter, they're getting more creative, and they're getting more competitive, which from a traveler point of view gives you more choice.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. I wanted to ask you about the Royal Tour. This is such a cool show concept. You've been to some of my favorite places on earth: Jordan, New Zealand, Mexico, with the heads of state. Tell us what that experience is like, is seeing these countries through the eyes of their presidents, or in the case of Jordan, the actual king of Jordan. What is that like?
Well, here's the concept of the show, which actually started with the King of Jordan 25 years ago. I came up with an idea to go to a sitting head of state, king, president, prime minister, sheikh, and we call it our impossible show,
Hmm.
and get from them the impossible. I get them to give me 8 days of their schedule devoted only to me 24/7.
Whoa.
We send their gatekeepers home. They have no right of editorial control or review. And then for the next 8 days, that king, president, prime minister, or sheikh is my personal tour guide to and through their country. And whatever happens, happens.
Yeah.
So the very first one we did was the King of Jordan. We did Petra on Harleys. Come on.
Wow.
We was the Prime Minister of New Zealand. We did the President of Mexico. We've done Peru, Ecuador. We've done Netanyahu in Israel. We've done Rwanda, Jamaica, Poland, Tanzania, and many others. And
Wow.
that's a show that's still on the air. It airs on PBS. If you go to Amazon now, you'll see all the shows there: Amazon, Apple TV, and YouTube TV. And we do about two of them a year because they're so difficult to do, as you can imagine.
Right.
But and by the way, the head of state never sees the show until we premiere it in New York, and they
Wow.
come to New York with their entire entourage, and everybody's scared out of their mind. But you know what? These are shows that humanize the country, and they tend to humanize the leader as well. And that's one of the reasons why they're so successful, because they're honest. Whatever happens, happens.
Yeah, that's incredible. So a lot of that is on Amazon. Tell us where else people can go to find your content or to follow you on social. Where can people find you?
Sure. Well, the website, we had committee meeting on this to name it. It's called petergreenberg.com. Uh, and that's ERG, by the way. We update that every week. It's a free newsletter. It is not transactional in any way. We don't sell anything. It's only information. So please check it out. Of course, our shows air on PBS stations across the country. We always like to say, check your local listings.
Hmm.
But they're also about 45 days after they premiere on PBS, they're available on Amazon Prime, Apple TV Plus, and YouTube TV. And last but not least is our radio show, which we're now in our 28th season on CBS. And this will give you an idea of my travel schedule. We are a 3-hour show every single week from a different location in the world,
Oh my
every
goodness.
single week.
Peter, you got a few decades on me, and I don't think I could keep up.
Well,
That's
it's not a race.
incredible.
It's not a race. Believe me. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Wow. Well, before we let you go, we got some questions we ask everybody, and these are just for fun. So no
Go
pressure.
ahead.
Shoot from the hip. When you travel, do you like to have a window seat or an aisle seat?
Window.
Yeah.
And there's two reasons for that. Not because I'm looking out at anything exciting, but because, you know what? I'll go to the bathroom before the plane takes off, and I'm not moving from that seat. I will be asleep before the wheels are up.
Wow.
I put on my headphones, get the playlist going. I don't want to talk to anybody. It's my only chance of quality sleep. How about that? And that's
Yeah.
why they do the window seat.
Yeah. All right, everybody. If you find yourself next to Peter on a flight, do not try to talk to him. He does not want to talk to you. So, what's something in your carry-on you wouldn't travel without?
Oh, you're going to laugh. Gorilla tape.
Really?
Yeah, because it fixes everything. Whether it's in your hotel room, whether it's a chip somewhere on a sink, whether it's a bag that got cracked or a luggage handle that needs fixing, or you need to send somebody something as like a FedEx or something, that's the tape you want to use. I mean, not just Gorilla tape, any of that strong fabric tape.
Yeah.
I always bring it. And of course, a flashlight.
Yeah, for sure. Great tips. If you had a week with nothing else to do and an airline that was willing to take you anywhere you wanted to go, where would you head next?
Well, I'm going to give you a different answer for that because
Okay.
I'm traveling 300 days a year by plane. So when I got married, everybody offered me a wonderful destination for our honeymoon. And I looked at my wife, and she looked at me, and we said, "We're staying home." Our
Absolutely.
honeymoon was home. It was the best. Seriously.
Yeah.
And so one thing you don't know about me is I'm also a fireman in New York.
No
And
kidding.
I've been a fireman since I'm 18. And I'm on duty 3 days a week, 7 months a year. So this week I'll be on duty Saturday and Sunday. The following week I'm on duty Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I always fly back for that. And it's on a beautiful location in New York on an island. And so every chance I get, that's where I'm going to be.
Can't blame you. That sounds amazing. Last question is, what's one thing you have seen or done on the road that you wish you could go back and experience again with somebody you love?
Well, let's get back to the traditional, well, not the traditional, my definition of travel. Travel is by definition an experience meant to be shared. Uh, and uh, and so the real answer I can give you is anywhere in the world. It could be Cleveland or Calcutta. If I'm with my wife, that destination becomes special.
Yeah. Amazing. Couldn't say it any better. Peter Greenberg, thanks so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure.
You got it, man. Thanks to do it.
Hey, thanks so much for joining us for this interview. I want to let you know that conversations like this are just part of what you will hear if you tune into a full episode of the Gather and Go podcast. When you listen, you'll get travel news you may not hear anywhere else, along with some really helpful road tips, some smart analysis, and maybe even a hot take from me about issues that are impacting travel right now. Now, you can hear this full episode along with many others by searching for Gather and Go in your favorite podcast player, or you can click on the link right below this video or one of the videos right here to my side. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon.